everyone. This is Mayan Gordon, and we are here live at 5 with a really special guest. But before I introduce her and let her really introduce herself, you guys know what to do. Post in the comments what is at least one thing that you're grateful for today. We all have something to be grateful for every single day, where we're breathing air, where we're getting to connect and interact with other people. And I know that you guys always have something amazing to share with me. I love reading the things you post in the comments, so I'd love to see those. Also, where in the world are you watching from? I'm coming to you guys from Spokane, Washington, the beautiful Pacific Northwest. That is definitely something I am grateful for today, is really just the city that I live in. Spokane is not only a thriving and growing city in terms of commerce, in terms of just the buildings that are being built here, but certainly in terms of the communities being built here as well. And that's something that's always really important to me. So we have a really, really special guest. I am very fortunate to have her on today's show. Her name is Joy Soto. I hope I pronounced that right. I should have checked before the show. Good. Okay. It's not too hard of a name, but I tend to mess them up sometimes. Could you go ahead and kind of just tell people, who are you? Maybe a couple things in terms of, what you've been doing the past 10, 15 years of your life, but really who are you at your core as a person?
Okay, well, hi, my name is Joy Soto, and I am a documentary filmmaker. I've started programs for kids who have cancer from Children's Hospital, and I'm also a TEDx speaker.
That's amazing. So let's go back. Let's talk about, where did you grow up, just so people have a little context of kind of where you come from in the world. I know that this is a really global audience, and sometimes having that geographical context is really helpful to understanding, people's journeys.
Okay, well, I was born in Hawaii, and then I was raised in Connecticut and Massachusetts. Then I went back to Hawaii for college. Then from there, I went to Chicago. I lived in Chicago for a little bit. And then after that, I went to San Diego, then to Florida, and then back to San Diego, which is where I am right now.
Well, that definitely prompts a question, which is, one, why did you move all over the place? I know that's not, a ton of movement compared to some people that I've talked to who really, either through military or whatever experiences, did move around a lot. But I mean, that's quite a bit of movement. What drew you from, where you grew up back to Hawaii, and then kind of to Chicago, San Diego, and so forth?
Well, when I grew up in Connecticut and Massachusetts. And when that happened, my parents gave me the option of going to school in Connecticut, Massachusetts. They were divorced, so I'd have to pick, or
Gotcha.
Hawaii, where I was born. And honestly, that was a big push for me, was to pick Hawaii, because I didn't have to pick between my parents and which state to live in. And it was Hawaii, so why wouldn't I pick Hawaii?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then kind of from Hawaii, what drew you to Chicago in particular?
Chicago was to get my master's degree. So I went to school in Hawaii, and I worked there for a little bit, working with animals. And then after that, I got my master's degree at the University of Chicago. So I lived right there in that area, in the city of Chicago, basically. And then from there, I got a job working at SeaWorld as a dolphin trainer. So I went from Chicago to San Diego. Then I moved from San Diego to Florida to help open up a park down there. And from Florida, I moved back to San Diego because I just love San Diego. I can't get enough of it.
That's awesome. So did you get a degree in like zoology, or what was your degree in?
It was actually in the social sciences.
Oh, how interesting. What made you choose that when you had this clear passion for animals and animal life?
It was actually to help me become a curator at some point. That was my goal at that point in my life, was to be a curator of marine mammals or a zoo. I've always had a passion for marine mammals, so that was what I was aiming for. And so I was trying to give myself some more credibility, so if I ever got into that position, I could have that to back me up.
Amazing, amazing. So I know you mentioned right at the beginning that you're a TEDx speaker. You also have done documentaries. That seems kind of disconnected and not necessarily related to this whole animal thing you got going on. Right. Tell me a little bit about that. Where did that come from? How did you get into filming and filmmaking? And then subsequently, what led you to be a speaker?
Okay, that's a great question. When I was working with animals, so I'm at my dream job every day, and I started thinking about editing. So my dad gave me a camera when I was younger, and so I would go and film something and then bring it home. And back then I didn't have an iMac where you could easily just edit something on there. So I was literally using a VHS tape recorder, and then I had that hooked up to like a boom box, and then I was making little short films with music to it. It was really crazy. I can't believe I did that.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. You like had it probably pretty close to the boombox, so it had the best sound quality.
Yeah, I would hook it in. So
Hook it in. Oh, cool. Direct line. Very nice.
Yeah, right. I can't edit, but I'll figure out a way to do this. And then after a while, then the IMAX came out, and I actually got one, and I was able to start editing on that. And so one of my friends who is in the film industry recommended that I go to film school, and so I ended up going to film school. And then shortly after that is when I got sick. So I was like 3 months into film school. People thought I was crazy for leaving my dream job, but I thought, this is another dream job of mine. I really wanted to be a filmmaker. And 3 months in, I found a lump on my throat, and then I had to drop out. I didn't want to drop out, actually. I wanted to keep learning, but I couldn't because I was going to be going through chemotherapy. There's a lot for me to do. So I wanted to go to class and learn, but I didn't want to do the work. And apparently that doesn't go over very well with the teachers.
Yeah, they don't let you, there's a word for that where the teachers can come in on a class, I forget what it's called, and they can learn but not do any of the assignments. Yeah,
Right.
audit the class. Yeah.
Okay.
But they don't let students do it for some reason.
I don't know why. Well, and I didn't talk directly to the teachers. I talked to the administration, and I thought, oh, this will be a no-brainer. I don't know why I'm talking to them, but I'll just ask. I'm sure they'll say yes because I have cancer, and you think that they'll be super nice to you, but they weren't. And I had to drop out.
Hear that.
Oh, that's okay.
And then that sounds like a really kind of almost devastating experience that you went through. Could you tell us just a little bit emotionally what that process was like? Because you were in film school, newly, very excited probably to be doing this kind of second dream pursuit. And then what were the emotions that hit you, and what was kind of the time frame of when that happened over?
Well, it happened 3 months in, and then it was Thanksgiving. I remember going to my uncle's house, and I had been coughing for a few weeks. And for the first time that I can remember, I coughed and I went like this, right as I walked in for Thanksgiving. And I felt that lump. And I remember my face just turned white. And I went to the bathroom and I looked at it, and I could like feel it. You could see it. It was like an egg under my skin. And so my first thought was, how could I not notice this? This has to have just popped up. So I went out and I interrogated my uncle and my aunt, and I asked them if they had seen that before when I first walked in, and they didn't notice it either. So then it was like this theory of maybe it's a spider bite. And then we ended up going to urgent care that night, and God bless that doctor, because that doctor is the one who, scared me because I asked him if it was leukemia. I had just been in the waiting room reading an article on leukemia, waiting to go into the urgent care doctor. And then when I went in, I asked him, and he didn't answer me. But he made sure to talk to my uncle and let him know it was very important for me to see a doctor on Monday that I'd be seeing for a long time. And so at that point, I knew it was something really, really bad. And then that Monday, I went to see a doctor. And by, I think that Friday, I was in surgery to have this removed. And it turned out to be lymphoma.
So very fast, really,
Yeah.
finding out what it was, realizing that it was something, very not good. And then luckily you got into surgery right away. That sounds like that was a pretty good thing. What was it like after you got out of surgery?
Just kind of a whirlwind. I think in life you have friends that come and go, and then friends that just stay around forever. And I remember one of my really good friends, this guy named Charles, who I went to school with in Hawaii, and then he lived in Chicago. The minute he found out I was sick, he flew out to see me. And so I had like a picture of him and I were like, he was reading to me because I just felt miserable. And I mean, just friends that are there for you. So I had an overwhelming support group, but I also had something happen, which I think a lot of people experience too. And that was that my boyfriend at the time, who I'd just been dating for, 2 or 3 months, not that long. I left a message with him to let him know I had cancer, and he never called me back.
Wow. Just completely dropped you.
Completely dropped me. And then there was one time where I called from a phone that happened to be unlisted, and he answered. I said, "Hi, it's Joy." And he hung up on me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
How awful. Like that's terrible. And I'm sure must have felt like not only really rejecting, but just like kind of drained a little bit of the hope out of you, because I mean, that's someone who is supposed to care about you, versus like, your friends, they're supposed to care about you, but like your boyfriend is supposed to care even more about you.
Right.
So what was the battle of those different emotions that you must have been experiencing between feeling supported, but also probably being quite scared, and also feeling some sense of loss in terms of some of the relationships that you had? How did you deal with all that, and what was the culmination kind of all of those feelings?
Well, so Thursday is when I found out, because it was Thanksgiving, that something was not right. Then before I even went to surgery, Tuesday is when I got that phone call, or I called him and he hung up on me. And I just remember feeling so angry. That lump that I had found, it never hurt. I never noticed it. There was no pain there. They would poke me in that lumpy area, and I never felt anything. And for the first time, when I felt so angry because of that person that wasn't, being supportive, I felt pain for the first time. And it was in that moment that I realized I need to change my thinking around, because it wasn't worth it, right? I mean, I have cancer. I have
Yeah,
big
so you made that direct connection of like your emotional state to your physical state.
Yes. I think we all have those moments in our life where we can like snap out of and go, okay, survival mode. We got to figure this out and drop this and focus on this. And that's what I did. I dropped him as much as I could. I mean, it still bothered me. But I remember listening to this motivational speaker named Zig Ziglar. I don't know if you've ever heard of him before.
Yes.
So he had this whole story about going to the airport and his flight was canceled. And most people would say something not good about their flight being canceled. They'd be upset, they'd be angry. And he told the person fantastic when he found out that his flight had been canceled. And then he went through all the reasons why it was good. It was good because there must be something wrong with that plane, with the people flying that plane, with the weather that plane will be flying in. Fantastic. I don't want to be up there. I want to be right down here. And that is what I thought of. In that moment when I was so angry, I felt the pain. I knew I had to turn it around. And when I thought of him, I thought, well, if he can do that with his flight being canceled, I can do that with cancer. And so I started thinking of all the reasons why it was good. They found it. I can get treated. I ended up being a stage 2. So I was grateful I wasn't a stage 4. It was all these things. I had the love of my friends and family. So there's so much to be grateful for. And I think in life, it's really easy to just focus on the negative. And that can really bring you down. But if you focus on the positive, you're going to figure out there's a ton to be grateful for. And that's what I started to do. What?
Yeah, so that's amazing, because I think, you're right. Most people, they aren't able to do that when something bad happens, even if it's something much, much smaller than cancer, like a flight or being late to a meeting, just being late to something in general. I think a lot of people are not able to make that mindset shift. So I know you talked to me a little bit about how important it is to you to be able to gain control in uncontrollable circumstances. And it certainly sounds like that's what you were trying to do and what you were achieving with that kind of mental and emotional shift. I'd love for you to maybe talk a little bit more about what that means to you and how that's played out kind of, in your life moving forward since that point.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I use that for in my life was I had to drop out of film school, and I didn't want to lose film school and what I was gaining from that experience. And so I ended up making a documentary on myself. So I grabbed the camera, started filming myself. I had my friends film me. I have, when they shaved my head, my brother shaved my head. So I have all of that footage. I'd bring my camera, my tripod to the hospital and talk to my camera in a separate room where no one could hear me. And that felt like I was taking back some control, because I think that's when you're going through any sort of experience, it doesn't have to be cancer, but some sort of experience like that in your life, it feels like you're losing control of things. I mean, even now with what we have with COVID-19, everyone feels like they're losing control. So it's just finding those ways where you can take back some control. So I had the documentary I was making on myself. And of course, what I wanted to show was the story of survival, because I knew that there were all of these people out there who had survived, but you always see movies on people who didn't make it. So I wanted to show that. And so I started doing that. And then something else I did was I had a notebook with me. I was like a little geek in there. Whenever they would do my blood work, I'd say, oh, can I have a copy of that?
Oh, cool. To put in your notebook and like catalog along with your experiences. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I would keep the notebook. I had the blood work. I would write down notes from the nurses. So I felt like I had some sort of
So you were
control.
still learning too, and even
Yeah,
though you weren't in school, you were still taking control of being able to learn new things and apply them to kind of the field of study that you wanted, which was to create something out of all of that.
right, exactly. So that, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I've done. But I feel like throughout my life, I've had that. I mean, they told me I couldn't have kids. And I remember walking out and talking to my husband, and he is just like me, and so he said, "Well, let's try something else." So I tried acupuncture. I ended up having two kids. They're two young kids that are running
Wow.
around.
And do you think that's directly attributed to the acupuncture?
I mean, I don't know if you could scientifically link the two,
Right.
but I was told I couldn't have them. I went to a fertility specialist, and I walked in pregnant. Like the second time I saw her after she'd done some tests, and she was going to give me the news of whether or not she could help me. And she starts to say all this bad news. She starts to tell us that there's not a very good chance, and I'm not a good candidate. And then I looked at my husband and I said, "We should tell her I'm pregnant."
What was her expression when you told her that?
Relieved, because she's telling someone who wants to have a baby that they can't have a baby. And then I'm
Right.
like, okay, just stop talking. I'm
Right.
pregnant.
Yeah. JK. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So how old are your kids now?
5 and 7.
5 and 7. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And how much of like kind of your story have they been, talked to about, like how familiar are they with your journey and your struggles that you've been through, and how much kind of do they understand of it if you have been talking to them about that? I'm really kind of curious about that.
Yeah. You know what? I haven't shown them the documentary because I think that's too intense for them to see at this age, but they'll see it at some point. They've seen pictures of me bald, and I told them that I got really sick once, and the medicine that they gave me to help make me feel better made me lose my hair. I tell them that when they like go to pull them on my hair. I mean, I don't say that every time, but I'm like, hey, I really love my hair. Can you not
Yeah.
pull it out?
Yeah.
So I really haven't gone into depth about it, but they know that something happened to me and that I'm lucky to be here. So
That's awesome, because I think sharing those kinds of struggle. I don't have kids yet, but me and my husband do plan to have in the near future. And I think that one of the things I got from my parents growing up was like seeing their strength and the things that they struggled through, and them sharing those struggles with me. It really, as a kid, I didn't really get it probably very much, but like now as an adult, I look back and see how much of an impact that really had with me. So I'm sure that you are, being an amazing role model and an amazing example for your kids. And I just wanted to kind of share that out with everyone watching, that I think that that's a really, beautiful thing and to bring it back to like how bad things can really be blessings in disguise.
yes.
That's one of those things, is like your kids are going to be stronger, more hopeful, more empathetic just from your experience and you sharing it with them in whatever parts and ways that comes through throughout their lives.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So, first of all, where can I watch this documentary? Because I like want to see it now.
Okay.
Where is it available?
Well,
Okay. Oh, and I was gonna say, and like, did you make something out of the notebook and all the notes did that turn into something as well, or is that something more personal as a keepsake?
that's like more personal. I did write a blog a couple years ago about the notebook and how important it was, and I kind of gave some ideas of what to make. And I've made a notebook for a friend of mine who went through cancer, just to kind of help them, because I think it's really important to have something there, just to feel like you have some sort of control over it. Because I know that was huge for me. And then the documentary, I'm selling the documentary, but I'm kind of done selling it. So if you want to buy a DVD, which no one even uses anymore, DVDs, you can go to justoneyearmovie.com and you can get it there. If not, I'm going to be uploading it in the next couple of days onto YouTube, and I can give you a link.
Oh yeah, that'd be wonderful. Personally, I'd love to watch it, and I'd love to share it kind of with my audience as well. So how long ago was that from where you are now, from kind of going through? Also, how long did the full treatment take?
It was about 6 months.
6 months.
6 months for the treatment. But then, I mean, they say, okay, now go back to normal life. And you're like bald and your muscles have atrophied and you're just not right. And so it took me a while to get back to normal. So for me, when I end the documentary, I end it when I'm going back to the hospital to get my port out, because when they took, I don't know if, do you know what a port is?
I don't. Please tell me.
Okay, a port. So when you're going through cancer, a lot of times they'll recommend a port, and it's where they put something underneath your skin, and they, instead of accessing your veins, they'll just give you the chemotherapy or the fluids that way, whatever, or blood transfusions. I got a ton of blood transfusions. So, and it's perfect. It was a wonderful blessing that I had that. And so I remember thinking and being told that they'll take it out when they feel like you're in the clear. And so on my birthday that following year, they took it out. So it ends with me having it taken out. And then it kind of goes beyond that, because so it ended in 2002. I started in 2001 and in 2002. And then it goes to a program started at SeaWorld, where I brought kids who have cancer from Rady Children's Hospital and Children's Hospital Los Angeles to the park, where they got to get in the water and meet a dolphin with me.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
can you tell me a little bit about like what was that like in that, let's say, 6 months to a year of getting back to normal, and what was the normal, like your old normal, or was it a whole new normal to you?
No, I didn't realize it, but I should have been going through to therapy because it's just so much a process. So I wasn't, though, and it took me about a year to finally ask for help. I was having, I don't want to say nightmares, but every time I dreamt, it was that I was sick again. It wasn't like a scary sick, it was just I was going through it. And so I finally went to go see someone, and that's when I started to really heal. It was probably a year after I was done with everything. So, and then I actually went to film school, a different film school. I went to the American Film Institute and I had like no hair at that point, and I started going there. And so I kind of like threw myself into everything really fast when I wasn't quite healed yet. And so when I started going to therapy and talking to someone about everything I've been through and all my emotions, because I really kind of kept it bottled up just
Absolutely.
to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I did that, that's when I started to really heal and become the person I was before.
Amazing. Now, let me ask you, this might seem like a tangent, but when did you meet your husband?
Oh, okay. Working at SeaWorld, I was a dolphin trainer there, and then he was working there for the summer, and I met him there. He's a little bit younger than I am.
That's awesome. So was that SeaWorld before the cancer treatment, or was that afterwards?
It was afterwards.
Afterwards.
Yeah,
okay.
So, yeah, I didn't know him before, and so I met him there, and I thought, he's too young, I'm not going to date him. And then we ended up going out, and he had all these great stories. He'd been in the military, and then he played musical instruments, and he was just like this amazing man, and he had this amazing family, and I just fell in love with him. So here we are all these years later, and we have 2 kids, and he actually, we both followed our dreams. So he wanted to be in the UFC. That was his big thing.
Oh, no way. That's so cool. My husband also, when I met him, was training for MMA to be in the UFC.
Yeah.
I made him stop because he didn't have health insurance. I was like, he would come home with these like massive bruise, like his whole leg would be a bruise. I'd be like, what happened? And he'd be like, they kicked me to teach me to block kicks, but I like didn't learn how. So that's really cool. Did he ever end up kind of getting to fight in the UFC, or what did that turn into?
Yeah, he won some belts. Like he won a belt in Mexico. And
what's his name? His name?
His name's Alex Soto.
Alex Soto? Oh, so cool. I know who that is. Wow, I'm like starstruck a little right now.
No, there's someone else. I think has a similar name, but he did get to the UFC. He fought twice. He did not win. That's
okay. It is so competitive. It is a hard sport. I don't think people understand usually. Like,
oh, I know. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's like a full life dedication sport too. It's not like soccer, where, not to be mean to soccer, but like you can play soccer and then like not play soccer and still be really good at it. UFC is like an every day of your life, all the hours kind of commitment type of thing. So that's amazing.
Did your husband ever have to cut weight?
No, luckily he's already very skinny. So he had to put on weight more than anything, which was also very difficult for him. But your husband did the cutting weight where did he wear the garbage bags and?
Yep, he won and then the Epsom salt baths, and then the sauna, if there was a sauna available, and then seeing him go through it, he would just become emaciated. I remember I would hide my eating. So if I was hungry, I'd go into another room and.
That's very nice of you. Yeah, that's very nice of you. Yeah. Wow, that's such a cool story. So, since you stopped cancer treatment, you went through film school. You went back to SeaWorld. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, so what was the kind of timeline of that?
So I finished
film school, then SeaWorld?
SeaWorld, left SeaWorld, went to film school, then that
Okay.
whole thing happened. And then honestly, I felt like I was off track in my life for about 5 years. So I ended up going back to SeaWorld to kind of get back on track. And one of the things when I was in the hospital, I had this one roommate named Bailey, and she was 5 years old, and she was the most adorable girl that you'd ever meet. And whenever I go into the hospital, because I had to stay there for 5 days at a time for my chemo, she would be there, and her family would actually ask for us to be roommates. So before I knew it, the nurses were moving people around, and Bailey is available or Joy's available, and we would be roommates. And so it was really important to me afterwards. I really wanted to introduce her to a dolphin because I talked to her about them and her face would light up. And so I would visualize us both having hair because we were both bald in the hospital and being healthy and that happening. So she actually went to remission. Everything was good. And I finally went back to SeaWorld in 2005. No, 2006. And so I called her and I was so excited. I said, hey, I'm going back. And I'm going to introduce you to a dolphin. And she was so excited. And so I set something up for her, and then it just didn't work out for whatever reason. And so then, life goes on. And then a few months later, I would say I got a call from her mom. And she said, oh, thank God I got you. I can't believe I got you. I can't believe I found your phone number. And she said, Bailey's gone. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So Bailey had, I guess she went back. It came back and she passed away. But they had been trying to get a hold of me. They lost my phone number, and they couldn't get a hold of me. So that was really horrible. But I still had that dream of getting her to come down there and for us to do that. And I remember talking to my husband before he was my husband, and he said, well, what if we do something that's something like an annual event where we bring kids in? It was like us just talking about it. And so I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. I went and made a proposal up, gave it to SeaWorld, and they said, yes, it's a no-brainer, absolutely. And so before I knew it, it was in 2008 at that point that we ended up starting our first annual children's hospital interaction. And I would always bring the kids in. And one of the most important things for me when I'd bring them in after I stopped being scared, because I was just really nervous about everything.
Right. Yeah.
Was I wanted to tell them that I was a cancer survivor too. Like, I had cancer too, and I had been treated at Children's Hospital, and now I'm giving back, so that they can see, okay, there's another side to this, okay, and this is what happens, and I can do anything I want to do after this. So that was always really important to me when I was there.
That's amazing. So how long did you stay at SeaWorld for?
I stayed there for about 10 years. I left in 2016.
Okay, wow. And first of all, what prompted you to leave? And then what did you do afterwards?
I had to leave to take care of my kids. And my husband had a crazy job where he was overseas a lot. And so it was just getting to be really difficult. So I ended up just leaving to be there with the kids. And that's what I've been doing. So I've been doing a lot of that. And then I started the speaking and just doing some other programs to help kids that have cancer. So that's what I've been working on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I have to thank you for really everything that you've been doing, not only for kids, but for everyone who you've spoken to and spoken in front of, to really inspire hope. I think that's what I'm getting out of this more than anything, is that it doesn't matter what your situation is or how bleak it might seem. There is hope, and there are people out there who not only have kind of survived whatever situation that you're in, but are there to help you and to give you hope and give you support and give you love. And I know that there's probably a lot of people in a bad situation where maybe they didn't have, or they don't have, a good support system or a family support system or a lot of friends. But I want to make sure that those people also know that there's hope, and that there are people who don't even know you, but who do care. You didn't know Bailey before she was your roommate, but you certainly cared very, very deeply about her. And I think that those bonds are really formed through shared experience, shared emotional connection. And so anyone watching this who feels in a negative place or feels in a place where they have a loss of control, just know that there are people out there who want to help you, who are willing to help you and try and find some of that control back in your life. I'd love to, ask, are there any other things that you really want to impart people with today? And then also, how could people get in touch with you if they either just want to, connect with you, learn more about your story, or hopefully get involved in some positive way, maybe with the children's hospital trips, like maybe they're connected. this is the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is
Yeah.
this is such a wide community. We never know who's watching these, and there's people with some really kind hearts out there. So how could they get in touch with you?
Well, you can get in touch with me either here on LinkedIn. I'm Joy Clausen Soto, Clausen, Soto, Soto. And then also on, if you go to my website, it's joyclausensoto.com, then you can contact me there if you'd like. So, but LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So this is a really good venue. And I just want people to know that there's a way. Just don't give up hope, because there's always some way. There's, the door closes. I know it's cliche. The door closes and then you find another way in, but it's true. I mean, there's all these things that are going to try and stop us in life, but the only thing that can really stop us is us. There's always going to be a way to accomplish our goals. And that's what I want people to know, is just don't give up.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your time, for sharing your energy with us. And I feel really blessed to have had this conversation. I'm excited to keep in touch with you and see what you're going to be doing here in the future, because I'm sure it's going to be amazingly powerful and great things. Thank you guys so much all for watching. If you got any value out of this, it would really mean the world to me, and I'm sure to Joy as well, if you would share it to your network, if you would tag someone in the comments, or even if you would just leave a comment yourself on how this impacted you, or if you have any type of similar experience or knowledge to share with everyone. Everyone have a great night, and I will see you again tomorrow.